Good morning and welcome to First Unitarian Society. I'm Kelly Crocker, one of the ministers here, and along with my colleague, Reverend Roger Birchhausen, we are joined today by Drew Collins, Linda Warren, Heather Thorpe, Daniel Carn, Stephen Gregorius, and the Ryan Joy family who will lead us in our chalice lighting. We are so glad to have you joining us virtually this morning. Though not together here in our beloved gathering space, we remain tied together through the bonds of community and affection. Here in this community, we gather to grow our souls, connect with one another, and embody our UU values in our lives, our community, and our world. We hope you will join us in the virtual coffee hour immediately after today's service. The information for that will be on your screen again after the postlude, along with the announcement slides. And I invite you now to take a few deep breaths, to be present here together, to bring ourselves fully into this time we share.
Our opening words come from David Breeden. May I be all in for beloved community. May I be all in despite the challenges. May I be all here for beloved community.
May I be ready for the beauty because I long for the possibilities. Yes, I am here for beloved community.
May I see the beauty of you in community, of us in community.
May we be the beauty of beloved community. May we be the dream together.
We join here for beloved community. We invite you now to join in our chalice lighting by lighting a chalice at your home as the Ryan Joy family leads us in our affirmation.
Across the distance, the light from within us shines, sending love to all. Across the distance, your light is fuel that warms us and helps to keep our lights burning together. We keep the flame of community burning bright.
Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy.
We're going to sing the Black National Anthem. Because it is a national anthem, we would rise in body and/or spirit as we would singing the Star-Spangled Banner. Some of the words in this hymn are uncomfortable, and they're supposed to be. Please understand that we can never understand the full depth of the pain of the people this song represents.
Liberty.
Our message for all ages today is a children's book called Sing a Song, written by Kelly Starling Lyons and illustrated by Keith Mallett.
Before you were born, a girl learned a song. Her principal, James Weldon Johnson, and his brother, John Rosamond Johnson, had written the hymn for a celebration of President Abraham Lincoln's birthday.
The girl wanted to make them proud. She hummed the song on her way home from school. She practiced it as she did her chores. On the big day, February 12, 1900, she was part of a choir 500 strong. Back straight, head high, heart and mouth open, she sang, "Lift every voice and sing till the earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty." And she kept on singing as she grew up. She taught it to her students when she became a teacher. She crooned it to her husband as they journeyed from Jacksonville, Florida, to a new life in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She sang it when she rocked her baby boy to sleep. It was part of her she wanted to pass on.
And you know what? Her little boy learned that song. He listened to her hum it as she dreamed of being able to teach again in her new home. He heard his daddy sing it when the days at the steel mill wore him down. Then one day, he stood in the choir loft and gazed at the glowing faces. Back straight, head high, heart and mouth open, he sang, "Let our rejoicing rise, high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea." And he kept on singing. He sang it when he came from World War II and faced discrimination. He sang it when he joined the NAACP. He sang it with his wife and to his baby daughter as he rocked her to sleep. It was a part of him he wanted to pass on.
And you know what? His little girl learned that song. She sang it each morning at school. Then came the day that broke the nation's heart. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was killed. The next morning, she saw her teacher cry. Sobs replaced singing, then whimpers and silence. Who would lead them now? The song whispered an answer. Back straight, head high, heart and mouth open, she sang, "Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us." And she kept on singing. She sang it at protests for equal rights and when she and her friends were jailed. She sang that song in her heart each time she won or lost a case as a lawyer. She sang it to her baby boy as she rocked him to sleep. It was a part of her she wanted to pass on.
And you know what? Her little boy learned that song. Every family reunion opened with that anthem. He sang because he had to at first, but then something changed. He saw the awe in his grandparents' faces, saw the pride in his mamas and pops. Back straight, head high, heart and mouth open, he sang. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has taught us. And he kept on singing. He sang it at his college graduation and when he opened his first business. He sang it at rallies to stand up against racism. He sang it holding his wife's hand at Black History programs and when he rocked his daughter to sleep. It was a part of him he wanted to pass on.
And you know what? His little girl learned that song. And on another big day, September 24, 2016, she stood in a crowd of thousands along with her mama and daddy. President Obama, the First Lady, and generations of one family rang the freedom bell. A dream born a century ago to honor Black lives and contributions had finally come true. The National Museum of African American History and Culture was officially open. With the Washington Monument piercing the sky, that little girl stared at the bronze building majestic as a crown. As bells around the nation tolled in triumph, she heard a voice rising too, clear and strong. It was a song she had heard her parents sing. Back straight, head high, heart and mouth open, she sang, facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
And you know what? That song is part of you. Sing when you score a victory. Sing when tough times get you down. Sing and think of all the people who sang it before you, who carried on and pushed forward even when everything was against them. Sing and remember they never stopped believing. Keep singing, keep pushing, keep passing it on. Keep on keeping on. I invite you into this time of giving and receiving, where we give freely and generously to this offering which sustains and strengthens our community within and beyond First Unitarian Society. This week's offering will be shared with the Mount Zion Baptist Church Food Pantry. Mount Zion has maintained a pantry in South Madison for over 30 years. Beyond serving during their regularly scheduled hours, the pantry coordinator will open the pantry in times of need. Pantry usage has increased tremendously during the pandemic. You will see on your screen that you can donate directly from our website, fusmadison.org. You will also see our text to give information there as well. We thank you for your generosity and your faith in this life we create together.
Our reading this morning is a video story from Madison resident Ms. Takeyla Benton. It's from a longer piece, which I hope will show in its entirety in another context soon here at FUS. I am so grateful to Takeyla for sharing her story, and to First Unitarian's Moses ministry team, and especially Liza Monroe, who worked with Takeyla on this project. Here's Takeyla's story.
Last night, I held my son while he slept. I couldn't bear to put him in his own bed. I squeezed him tightly and tried not to cry too loudly as I kissed his caramel-colored forehead. My silly, adorable little guy. When I originally wrote this piece, like all boys his age, he was obsessed with Minecraft and superheroes. Kind of still is, actually. His default speed was turbo. And any sound produced by a bodily function induces uncontrollable laughter. Actually, it still does. Quickest way to get him to crack up is a fart joke or burp joke. He still sings when he's in a good mood. And while he used to think that fried cheese curds should be Madison's official food, his personal tastes have grown. His favorite is king crab legs. He still has a knack for annoying his older sister like all little boys do, and she spoils him way worse than I do. We often joke about his sweetness and his softness on display the 2 years where he wanted to wear a suit and tie to school every day. Yeah, a suit and tie. It was so adorable. And every day I'm terrified for his life. Not the normal worry about chipped teeth and scraped knees or sports-related injuries. No, I harbor deep-seated anxiety and gut-wrenching fear for the statistically inevitable outcome stalking his future. Imprisonment or death. Some days I'm simply emotionally catatonic because I don't think I have enough courage to raise a Black man. I birthed this beautiful, plump, brown baby boy who was just so adorable with a head full of hair and deep dimples on his cheeks. But I don't think I have enough courage to raise a Black man in America. I tell myself, he'll be different. I'll raise him better. I'll learn from other mothers' mistakes, whatever that means, and give him every opportunity for success. But I know, nothing I do, nothing I teach him, no opportunity award and no future I map out for him, not a damn thing I do can guarantee he will live a long life free of handcuffs or a coffin. Not in a society that doesn't value his existence unless he's holding a ball or mic. And I often wonder, when do little boys turn from cute, adorable little puppies that everyone wants to sit on their lap and pet and just explore and talk to ravenous dogs that are a threat and they deserve to be put down at the first sign of aggression? It's about 12 years old. How do I teach him to value his life in a society where his life is constantly being thrown in his face as valueless? It's a commodity, a hashtag. How do I teach him to be individually accountable when his mere presence evokes the stereotypical mass panic and paranoia that pushes the plague and imprisonment and poaching of Black men into extinction? Perhaps the ASPCA should protect our Black men instead of the NAACP. Have you ever had to teach your kids a whole different version of their history because they cried so hard during Black History Month because it hurt to be viewed as nothing more than a slave or property, and then images of smart, acceptable Black men who rose up were met with assassination? Oh, but don't worry, your holiday will be named after you and your picture will be on a poster. It's heartbreaking, right? I want to protect my funny, sweet, adorable little guy, but the powerlessness dwindles my hopes for humanity. For his shoulders, all of this may be too heavy. Even now, the meditation isn't enough to wipe away the stickiness and the grime that racism leaves at the end of the day. I just want everyone to always see him the way that I do and take care of him like he is their son too, and see him with all the promise and pride, not the stereotypes and lies. I want to hold him and protect him from the world because the thought of having to bury his dead body in the suit and tie he loves so much before he's even had a chance to experience life causes my soul to splinter and bleed through my pores. Even today, y'all, I just can't watch the news anymore. So I often just sit there and be silly and hold and kiss and just hug my little guy for all the Black mothers who too soon had to say goodbye. I hope this message doesn't tug at your heartstrings. I hope it does not elicit guilt or fear or shame, but I hope it helps you recognize the humanity and empathy in mothers and the sons and those who may have a story that doesn't sound like yours, who may have a face and a skin color that doesn't look like yours. I'm not asking you to change something, but I would like for you to change something inside and examine the barriers that you have inside to prevent you from being able to really feel another person's empathy and validate their story without your own proof of its truthfulness or validity. I just hope that you're able to recognize the humanity in another, especially a little Black boy you see. Just love him and protect him like he's your son, because he's somebody's baby. And that mama wants him home at night. And it takes all of us to protect them. Thank you.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. talked a lot about beloved community. In her excellent column in this month's FUS newsletter, our communications director, Brittany Crawford, cited a definition of beloved community that I really like. Beloved community happens when people of diverse racial, ethnic, educational, class, gender, and sexual orientation backgrounds and identities enter into an interdependent relationship of love, mutual respect, and care. Love, mutual respect, and care. Importantly, Brittany also quoted Bell Hooks, who says that the beloved community does not remove differences, rather, it removes privilege. Beloved community does not happen when the differences between individuals and groups of people are erased and replaced by a monochromatic unity. Well, Dr. King was an idealist and he was a realist. He understood that all people, himself included, make mistakes. In the language of his Christian faith, he recognized that all of us are capable and at times exhibit sin. Communities are made up of people. Therefore, no community completely and perfectly embodies the ideal of beloved community. What we can do in actual community is try to embody the principles of beloved community as often and as consistently as we possibly can. To the extent we do so, beloved community comes to be in the here and now of this world. So there are not specific beloved communities that, like LEED certified buildings, have the stamp of approval on them. But there are communities that figure out how to embody beloved community, true mutual love, at least some of the time. This understanding of beloved community thinks about my own way of seeing paradise. I don't think of paradise as some state of being we might find after we die if we've been good people. Paradise, rather, is something that can be embodied here on earth. I actually believe the same thing about hell. It's not somewhere else after life. It is embodied here on earth, unfortunately. So we don't achieve paradise and get this is paradise stamp of approval. We can approximate paradise at times. Paradise on earth is always fragile, and it is always impermanent. For me, paradise on earth includes those qualities that we talk about in beloved community that Brittany highlighted in her article: love, mutual respect, care for one another. I would expand it to also include relationships not just with people, but with that wider interdependent web of existence. As Unitarian Universalists in the United States, we've begun to have a reckoning these past 4 years with the legacy of white supremacy culture that is part of our UU heritage in this country. It's occurred to me that the environmental ethic comes more easily to most of us in our mostly white denomination than the anti-racism ethic. I've come to the conclusion that therefore we need to prioritize the work of racial justice, and that this is actually key to making more progress in our environmental justice work. They are inextricably linked. No racial justice, no environmental justice. I think this realization is part of why First Unitarian's Board of Trustees has included anti-racism, anti-oppression work in this year's strategic priorities, one of 3 strategic priorities, and I applaud that decision. Now, it can be tempting to look at these different types of justice as either-or propositions as part of a zero-sum game, and this is not the case. Putting a primacy on racial justice for a period of time does not mean that we quit doing environmental work or that we don't believe that this environmental work is urgent and important. Rather, it is saying that as a predominantly white congregation in a predominantly white denomination, we have some long overdue work to do on racial justice. And doing this work will help us do everything better, including environmental justice. So we're putting a primacy on racial justice work this year into next year. I hope we keep it front and center longer than that because it's going to take a while. All of this makes me think of one of my kids. One of my kids responded to being challenged to do something better with, I just stink at that. As in, I'm really bad at that and it's hopeless, so forget about it and leave me alone. Well, none of us are good at everything. There are some things we really struggle with. Sometimes it's okay to let those things go, but sometimes we need to keep on working on them. So to be blunt, in many ways, our American Unitarian Universalist faith has stunk at anti-racism work. We've missed opportunities. We've made wrong decisions. Not always, not all of us, but enough of us, me included, often enough, me included, that it's been a problem. But anti-racism work simply can't be something that we shrug off with, well, we stink at that. We have to try. We have to work at it. No doubt we will keep making mistakes, but I believe in my heart that we can do better. And by we, I mean me and you and First Unitarian Society and our UU Association in the United States. Friends, the world needs us to do better. Our UU kinfolk overseas need us to do better so we can build truly mutual partnerships together. First Unitarian Society and our UU faith in the United States need us to do this work so that our congregation and our faith can survive and thrive as the United States becomes more thoroughly multicultural. Our neighbors of color need us to do better. They need us to be in the trenches, working with them, supporting them, in many ways following them to make Madison a more just place. We need to do this work so that our beloved congregation can more consistently embody beloved community. And we need to do this work for our own souls, not for some heavenly reward, but so that we're better people and that we leave a better imprint from the way we live our lives. So there's a movement to highlight this anti-racism, anti-oppression work within the Unitarian Universalist Association by adding an eighth principle. The proposed eighth principle reads, "We, the members of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journey toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community, by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions." It's kind of a lot to say, so I'm going to say it again. We covenant to affirm and promote journeying toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. Well, I support this eighth principle, adding this to our 7 principles, just as I supported adding an additional source of our Unitarian Universalist faith several years ago, namely that spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. I supported that needed to be part of what we cite as our sources of our faith. Well, it's important to understand that the 7 principles and the now 5 or 6 sources are not some sort of creedal statement. They weren't imprinted on stone like the Ten Commandments. They are a snapshot summary of what most Unitarian Universalists believed in the 1980s. And just as our faith is a living entity, so must our understanding of what's most important among us be alive and growing and changing. So the eighth principle recognizes that this anti-racism, anti-oppression work needs to be front and center for us for a while. Since I first encountered Dr. King's book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community, maybe 30 years ago, I keep coming back to it. He wrote that book in 1967. It's my favorite book of his. And every time I read it, every few years, I think, wow, it's as if he wrote that book for this precise moment. Listen, for example, to this quote from the book. At the other end of the pole are unregenerate segregationists who have declared that democracy is not worth having if it involves equality. The segregationist goal is the total reversal of all reforms with reestablishment of naked oppression and, if need be, a native form of fascism. Wow. Could that not have been written on January 6th when an overwhelmingly white mob attacked the United States Capitol, some waving Confederate flags? Now, there were lots of motivations for those attackers besides indiscriminate devotion to an authoritarian leader. Certainly some, including the inciter-in-chief, were unregenerate segregationists out to cancel beloved community wherever it has happened and come to be in the United States. Martin Luther King Jr.'s words in 1967 are spot on for 2021. In that question that Dr. King posed in the title of his book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community? Remains such a potent question. Certainly, it's an apt question in the wake of the January 6th insurrection, when we had a picture yet again of what chaos looks like. Now, we don't know for sure how things will unfold in these coming years, but it's clear to me that there are two sets of paths that we could take, and one leads toward chaos and one leads toward community. Which path will our nation choose? The only way forward, in my view, is toward community. That was true in 1967 and 77 and 87 and 97 and 2007 and 2017 and 2021. I think Dr. King would have understood this even though he really wasn't sure in 1967 that there'd be a 1977 for us, let alone a 2021. Hear these words from his book. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. Procrastination is still the thief of time. Life often leaves us standing bare, naked, and dejected with a lost opportunity. We may cry out desperately for time to pause in her passage, but time is deaf to every plea and rushes on. Over the bleached bones and jumbled residues of numerous civilizations are written the pathetic words, too late. There is an invisible book of life that faithfully records our vigilance or our neglect. The moving finger writes, and having writ, moves on. We still have a choice today, nonviolent coexistence or violent co-annihilation. This may well be humankind's last chance to choose between chaos or community. Wow, those are powerful words. I think that we need to take a leap of faith every day when we are encountered with the fierce urgency of now. And that leap of faith is that maybe it's not too late, that at least it's not too late to try. The video sharing this morning by Takeyla Benton underscores the fierce urgency of now. the fierce urgency of this work. Her son's well-being and maybe even survival depend on our city and our nation finally choosing the path toward beloved community. We are part of a society that funnels Takeyla's son toward prison or even an early grave. We can work with Takeyla. We can support Takeyla and others to help transform our society to one that funnels her son and all children toward beloved community. We have to feel Takeyla's and her son's story as she asks us to do. We have to love them as if they are our own, because they are, and we are their own. Confronted with the fierce urgency of now, let us choose community and love. As we enter into a time of meditation this morning, I'm going to share a reading that comes from Reverend Dr. Hope Johnson, a beloved colleague of Reverend Kelly and mine, who sadly died in December. This piece appears in the book Voices from the Margins. Reverend Dr. Johnson writes, "We are one, a diverse group of proudly kindred spirits here not by coincidence, but because we choose to journey together. Learning to love our neighbors, learning to love ourselves, apologizing and forgiving with humility, being forgiven through grace, creating the beloved community together, we are one. Let's share in a few moments of silence together. Amen.
There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this
Would you please rise in body and or spirit to sing with us hymn number 1014, Answering the Call of Love.
The promise of the Spirit, faith, hope, and love abide, and so every soul is blessing made whole. The truth in our hearts is our guide. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts
Our words of benediction this morning are simple and challenging. May we choose community in our individual lives, within our First Unitarian community, and beyond the walls of our congregation. May we choose community. And may you go in peace.